Hello and welcome to the Rabblecast. My name is Eric Hernandez, here along with
Doug.
Oh, I've missed that. On this episode, we talk about a few different things. One, coffee. Great thing. Keeps me going, keeps me alive before I pass out, which is going to happen very soon, so we're going to make this quick. This episode marks the anniversary of the show. 18 years, if you can believe it. And as we covered on the show, 12 years for Doug. So we've been doing it for quite some time. We have an idea of what we're doing. In other cases, maybe not so much. But we go over a few things. Again, kick around some ideas and everything else. But we enjoy it. We have fun with it. We hope you, as the listeners, have enjoyed it as well. And continue to do so as we continue to cover a bunch of different things. Like the recent release, or at least the announcement of Jason Universe, which still, to me, it sounds a little weird. Maybe that's it. Maybe just the title's throwing me off a little bit. But it's the announcement of a launch of, I guess it's like a consolidated experience as far as like games, entertainment, immersive experiences, movies, whatever the case is. Everything Jason will now be falling under this umbrella. More announcements and everything else. And I think, what is it? If I can find the website real quick. If you go to... just go to jasonuniverse.com, and that'll be the website for all your Jason news from Horror Inc., and we'll find out more information. We get into the backstory of it as far as the legal drama that happened, Friday the 13th video game that suffered from it, and we'll see what happens, because as Doug was saying before, any new Jason is good Jason, right?
Yep.
So we'll go with that. And then I also touch upon the X-Men 97, which I'll keep this short and simple. If you have not seen it, it's worth a watch. We don't know what happened with the executive producer / writer in Bo DeMeo, but hopefully that story will come out eventually, and we will, from there, cover it and have reactions and, move on from there. But if you have not seen it on Disney Plus, I implore you, it's fun. It rewards you for being a fan of the show, of the comics. It's good stuff. And what was the movie again that you had mentioned that's coming out end of May, beginning of June? In a Violent Nature, right?
Yes, that's correct.
A new slasher film that has very similar ideas to Friday the 13th. But from what Doug has sent me, I'm going to check out the trailer after we record this. The image of the killer itself, like the artist rendition of it, looks really interesting. So another entry into the horror pantheon. So we'll see how that goes. We are brought to you by InsidePulse.com. You can find us under the various different sections over there: games, comics, movies, TV, wrestling. Give us a look. Also, Rabblecast.libsyn.com, where the show is uploaded. Check out the Rabblecast Facebook fan page. Send us a tweet at Rabblecast. Check us out on YouTube at Rabblecast. Check us out on Spotify, as well as Apple Podcasts. And if you have any questions, comments, feedback, email us, rabblecast@gmail.com. That's about it. Anything else, sir?
Nothing from my end.
All right. Well, that's about it. Coffee is going strong. I'm not going to hold you back any further. Let's get into it. Enjoy the show.
I think that was 10 seconds.
Yes, sir. By my count and by the count on the recorder, it is 10 seconds and then some. How are you?
I am tired. How are you?
Same. Again, working through the backlog, to which people keep asking me, what the hell's going on? What's happening? Look, week after week, things come up. Life gets in the way. Things get important. Doing this show when I didn't have kids or married was a lot easier. And that's not to rag on my wife or my kids. Things are a little bit different now. Different responsibilities are necessary to keep things going. good example was this past weekend was Mother's Day and a birthday party, which ate into a lot of my available time that could have been used for editing. So the recent episode where we talked about Transformer 1 and the trailer that was released, and then we were talking about reboots and everything else, that was posted last night, very late in the evening. And as I was listening to that episode, I'm thinking to myself, oh, you know what? That was the episode where I had 2 cups of coffee and I was like bouncing off the walls. Well, let's see if I can replicate that. So once again, Vietnamese coffee, don't tell me how to pronounce it, goddammit, just downed it right before I started setting everything up. I was like, oh, it's 9 o'clock. I better start getting things together. And I just, finished the rest of the large mug. So we'll see. I'm sure, I'm hoping it'll pick up. I'm sure it'll be a little bit different than my usual energy levels. But we'll see what happens. Because not only has, not only have things been busy as far as like outside of work itself is still a drag. So we're just trying to make it through all that. Jen kept asking me, like, how are you doing today? I'm like, I'm doing fine. I'm just trying to make it through the rest of the day and make it so I can do the show. So this has been like my main goal so far, is just to be able to sit down, call you, talk to you, see what's up, go over a few things, and then hopefully look forward to a pleasant Friday and a relaxing weekend. Not as many things on the horizon this weekend, but still a few things here and there to try to work around and figure out. So, how about you?
All right. Yeah.
Any plans or?
No.
Okay.
Plans. What do you think I am, a planner?
I don't know.
Fuck. I don't know. I don't know what. Yeah, that was weirdly hostile. I don't know what's going on.
It reminds me of the one Andrew Dice Clay joke. Hey, Doc, I'm having trouble making friends, you cocksucker. Gee, I wonder why. I am going to play with your sound levels just a little bit. Because apparently...
Okay.
So one of the nice things recently was, as I was finishing up work the other day, I know I'd mentioned, I think it was on the recent episode. It's by this point, it should be announced that it's going to be all taken care of. So, I'm just fucking burying the lead. First off, today and tomorrow will be the anniversary date of the show.
Really?
Yeah. This will be around the time. I say around the time because there's a little bit of a conflict between when the show was recorded and when it was released from back in the day.
Okay.
I didn't have the reins as far as recording. That was Jamie back in the day. We get him together in his place, recording, him taking care of the file and uploading it to Inside Pulse. It was a whole different beast back in the day. But between recording it and then releasing it, it's... I always regard like the 16th, 17th, around that time. Back then it was a lot easier. We just record it, upload it, don't have to worry about anything as far as editing. There was less things to worry about in that regard. Our setup wasn't the greatest because if you, cut out one mic, which I would do playfully from time to time, and then whatever we were doing at the time was just using 2 microphones, handheld, and sitting in a bedroom. Now we're trying to be a little bit more professional. For the people who keep sending me emails and saying, oh, Doug's levels are low. I witnessed it for the first time myself. The show is now available on Spotify. So if you're listening to this, normally you would get it on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Rabblecast.libsyn.com, where it's always uploaded. So those are the usual avenues for the show, or if you go to Inside Pulse itself. But I put it up now on Spotify so people can get it. And as I was recently finishing up a podcast, the first thing that came up right afterwards was the episode with Transformers 1. And I was like, oh, this is weird. Like, I'm not used to us being in the rotation of Spotify. But at the same time, I could hear myself, okay. But then when your voice chimes in, obviously you can hear that you're on a phone line. But you come in a little bit lower. So yes, for everybody who has been emailing me or sending me messages, yes, I've been trying to play with it over time. The problem is, when I do the editing and when I'm doing the recording, I don't hear it as much. I can hear Doug just fine. Say hi, Doug.
Hello.
There you go. I can hear him just fine. I'm wearing cans as I do this. But when you're listening to this on a radio or your headphones, there is a remarked difference. So I was like, okay, I do have to try to adjust Mr. Douglas so that he comes in a little bit more. One more time, say toast for me.
Toast.
Okay, there we go. I think it's a little bit better. We'll tweak it as we go along. But now at this point, oh gosh, how long has it been? I think we're on 18 years now. Yeah.
Yeah, it was 2006.
Yep, the show came out in 2006. 18 years. This is going to be, by the time you get this episode, it'll be a few weeks after. I'm hoping just a couple. I'm trying to ramp back up to doing 2 weeks so we can clear out 2 episodes in a week so I can clear out the backlog. I think there was one where I did like 3 episodes in a week. But again, just trying to get through it. This show has been a labor of love. I always use that term. There's no other way I can describe it. For anybody wondering, yes, the window is open in the background, so you will hear sounds, even the neighbors at times, and any cars that pass by. It's hot up here, and I think the caffeine's setting in. But yeah, that's all to say. The show is still a work in progress. It always has been, always will be. If not, there's no point to do the show. Like, if you hear something, say something. You know, like just to riff on, if you see something, say something. Just trying to tweak it, do different things with it, try to involve different people. I've also, we'll just do some on-air spitballing. You ready?
Okay.
I've been playing with the idea, because I do have people who listen to the show on a regular basis. And the idea is, when everybody listens to us and they generally like our conversations, sometimes people will chime in and they'll say, I can't believe you guys are talking about superhero movies again. That's my fault. That's what I'm into. Sorry. Not sorry. But I'm trying to find a way to engage some of the listeners a little bit more. Now that we're on Spotify, now that we have a little bit further reach as far as platforms are concerned, I mentioned all the different ones before. I'm playing with the idea of possibly having people send in like voice messages, and we'll play them. Like, I was gonna, if I had more time, I would have reached out to Jimmy and like, hey Jimmy, maybe you can send us like a little bit of a update, because we haven't heard from him in quite some time. I'll get messages from Jimmy every now and then. Weird memes or jokes or links. It's always appreciated. Always good to hear that he's doing well overseas. But just a way to, one, include him, include others. I've been talking about getting people to sit down and have their thoughts as well on different things that have been happening recently. But I don't know. I don't want it to become like a morning zoo kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if people will remember that era of radio where things were just jokey for joke's sake. And that was just, again, trying to get people to tune in and listen. I don't know how engaged they were, but I'm just trying to find a way where we can include the people. Because if there's one thing that I've enjoyed about this show, it's, in a sense, it's been community building. So it's been the people who've been listening for quite some time. It's been the people who've participated, sending in emails, commenting on different things. I like it. I like the feedback. I like the responses. Every now and then you'll get an a-hole who just wants to ruin your day. And sorry to say, you can't do that to me, motherfucker. I used to work retail, goddammit. I've got a thick-ass skin. So you can go on and leave a comment and just be shitty all day long. But you know what? I've been doing this for a while. Excuse me. Now the words are starting to fail me. I've been doing this for a while, to the point where somebody come out and say, oh, your recent episode? Yeah, it was stupid. Okay. The show's free. Enjoy it. Have fun. I'll put out the next one. If you like it, cool. If not, move along.
Exactly.
So
it's a free fucking podcast. It is what it is.
Yeah, I'm not here to kowtow to anybody. I'm not here to grant your wishes. Trust me, if I could, I'd be doing it for myself and my friends and family. But that's all to say, we talk about what we like. We go over the different subjects. There's a couple I want to try to go over tonight. But I did want to make mention of the fact that 18 years. I don't think I've committed to anything 8 to 18 years in my life thus far, other than this show. And yes, if you want to, split hairs, there's about a year and a half, 2 years where it went dark, only because, well, things were scattered when it came to the pandemic and everything else. I tried to maintain it, it wasn't as easy as one would think. One of the conversations I got into with one of our friends was that, oh, it's funny, during the pandemic, everybody else was like putting stuff out and doing crazy things. You went the opposite direction. I'm like, yeah, because I didn't stop working, fucker. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, the coffee's kicking in. But yeah, no, if anybody wants to try it, I recommend it. Go out there. I have a Zoom P4 podcast recorder. It was a gift from Jen years ago. It's been doing very, very well. It's had its own little nuances, but I've learned some of the ins and outs, and I'm been using it to really good effect, especially now that we're doing this remotely between you and I. But for anybody out there who says, oh, podcasting's easy, just sit down and record and put it up. Okay, go for it. There are millions upon millions of podcasts now. They're out there. Everybody's doing their thing. If you think you can go and make a splash, I implore you. And it's not like to say like F you or this is a challenge. No, I'm just saying if you think that you can do the job, go for it. Nobody's stopping you. It's easy to sit behind a keyboard or to send a message and say, I think you're shit and you should probably stop. Not that I've gotten many of those every now and then, like I said. But for the people who like to complain, it's easier to complain than it is to do the thing. So, and I don't know where it comes from, whether they're having a bad day, maybe they're just, in a certain space. I think about it sometimes. I'm like, where does somebody have to come up with a negative emotion to leave a comment to say you're stupid, this isn't good, you're dumb, whatever the case is. It's pointless. And I always try to make it a point whenever I leave a comment or feedback, it's constructive in some shape or form, or at the very least, complimentary. Because fuck, man. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say it's a drag. It's tough to get stuff, recorded, edited, and put it out. And for the people who say, oh, thank you so much for it. Cool. I'm glad it's finding its mark in some shape or form out there. But for the other people who like to try to rain on your parade, it's like, all right, we'll keep going. 18 years? No, we're good. We're good. Don't worry about it. I'm just trying to find new ways and do different things. I know you've said before you wouldn't mind if I have other people on at this point, just to try to flesh things out a little bit more and have more people. Because all right, pure facts. I have kids. If I invite somebody over to my house, half the time, the place looks like a bomb just went off. And that's because I have a toddler who decides he wants to throw everything around their living room. And it just looks like, playtime gone wrong. So having a guest come over and sit on the couch nowadays, probably not as easy as it was back in the day. So remote calls might be the way to go. And again, we still have problems with that. I think you might have just heard a little bit of a weird noise feedback over the line sometimes, or like a weird buzz. So we'll see. We'll play around with that one. But here's the 18 years. Thank you, Doug, for joining. How long have you been on the show for at this point?
First time I recorded with you I think it was September of 2012.
That sounds right. Oh, wow. So you're, about 14, not 14, good Lord. About 12 years now.
12.
Yeah, we're not doing the subtraction.
I am by far your longest co-host, I would say.
Yes, that is a very safe bet. I would say that, yes. We've had many over the years, a lot of different people who would come in. You are one of the hosts. I don't refer to you as co-hosts because it sounds like I'm diminishing you.
Well, I'm happy to give you the host, and I'm happy to call myself co-host because you're also the person who does the editing and the the editing and the posting and the work. And I literally just talk into a phone like an asshole, or the microphone, or whatever we've done over the years. So, no. In fact, now that I'm thinking about it, we haven't recorded at your house since probably early 2015.
Yeah, you're right. It's been quite some time.
Yeah, because the last time we did an all at your house episode was when we were wrapping up WrestleMania in 2015, which that was 31. And then we took a few weeks off. I think we took like 2 or 3 months off. And then we came back and we started recording at the studio that Jimmy was renting off of that Walkaway.
Yes, out in Somerville.
Yeah, and that was when we switched to, we're just going to talk about whatever we want.
Yep. Again, if I could get to that point where I could rent out a little space or just find a little studio, so to speak. Again, looking behind the curtain as far as this show is concerned, the studio is currently my living room. In the background, I have my big screen TV. The Transformers movie is playing on mute, and it's just a bunch of different things going on. I have my tablet here is next to me. I see the recorder. It's within eyesight, so I can keep track of the time. I'm sitting in my gaming chair, and we're all just having a good old time. But if we could do the studio setting again, where you can come out, or we can have guests come out and sit down, dim the lights, candles, stuff like that, just ambiance. It adds to the feel for people in the room sometimes, and I think that translates over the audio as well. But hey, this is again always changing, always evolving. We'll see what we can do and what we can get to. So, congrats on being the longest running second mic.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's pretty interesting because you brought me in because Mike at the time was having trouble getting up to you because of his work schedule.
Yes. No, and that's what it has always been, like trying to figure out work, life, schedules just don't always meet up. And it was easier when we were younger, in our 20s, but as things have progressed, there were times where I wasn't sure if Mike wasn't going to show up. And now it's not because of him. He worked sometime very long distances out. His work at the time, I don't know if he still has it, I haven't spoken to him in a while, had him going to far out job sites. So when he came back, he'd be fighting traffic. There'd literally be times where when we were on the Blog Talk Radio days, the show was scheduled at a certain time. So we had a block of 2 hours, and we had to work within that time constraint. So at 8 o'clock, if Mike wasn't here, the theme song would start rolling. I'd have to do the intro and make sure that everything was all set, and he'd be walking up the stairs, coming up to the studio. And like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, just sit the fuck down. So those were interesting at times. Now it's a little bit more relaxed, especially when we were recording at Holly's place back in the day, where you just walk in, set up, we're good. Send a text. I'm running a little bit late. I'll be there. Give me 5, give me 10 minutes, whatever the case is. You were very understanding when it came to that. But the same thing nowadays. Like if you have an issue, you shoot me a text, or if I'm setting up, putting the kids to bed, it's always something. So getting to the point where we can just sit down comfortably and not have to worry about like time constraint. Now we have like it's not even like a really set time. We run for a certain amount of time. And once we feel like we've got to that point, we're like, all right, we're good. And move on to the next. So,
yeah.
But always good, always fun. One of the things I wanted to bring up, and one of the couple subjects that I want to cover tonight, I recently mentioned that Transformers, the 86 movie, animated movie, that's, regarded by many Transformers fans as the Transformers movie, that, live action, nothing else has touched it so far. Transformers 1 remains to be seen whether it's going to live up to the legacy or the expectations of the 86 movie. I had mentioned before that Transformers is celebrating its 40th anniversary this year because the cartoon came back out in 84. The movie is re-released oftentimes in August, around the same time that the movie was released back in 86. In theaters this month, in fact, one took place last night on Wednesday at a bunch of different theaters around this area. I think AMC theaters in particular, but other franchises have also been advertising it. Saturday and Sunday at 2 o'clock, you can buy tickets for the 40th anniversary Transformers event.
Really?
And what that is, I think like tickets are like $12. It's not that bad as far as ticket prices are concerned. I would assume it's considered a matinee. I don't remember what matinee times are anymore. But the idea is you can go, get your ticket. They're selling commemorative popcorn buckets and soda cups. Get those. Go into the theater, sit down. I already saw the theater that I'm going to. It's pretty packed. It's not sold out, but last I checked, a good number of seats have already been sold. And what's going to happen is they're going to show 4 episodes of the cartoon, the first 4 episodes of Generation 1, with all the original characters and voice actors. So if you want, you go. The first episode is going to be shown in a split screen format. Yep, caffeine's kicking in. Where you can see the cartoon on one side, and on the other side, you're going to see the voice actors doing their lines. So you can actually see the performances by Peter Cullen, Frank Welker, and whoever else is going to be on hand for that. So it'll be a nice little behind the scenes look as far as how they record the episodes. And then from there on, you get to watch the next 3 episodes. That was pretty much the first story arc of the show. And it's all to have fans come out, to get together, have fun, celebrate Transformers for what it's been, what it's meant to everybody. Again, if you go back to the movie when they killed off all these other characters, kids at that point were emotionally invested in these characters. So they got a lot of backlash from fans and from parents because, the death of Optimus Prime, the death of any number of Autobots or Decepticons, whatever the case was, all these characters people were so enthralled with suddenly were just taken out on the big screen. Now they understand it a little bit more, and now they have a better idea what these characters, these running themes mean to people. Now those kids who were 5, 6, 7, 8 years old are all adults. 40 years later, now we can go to the theater and watch the first few episodes together as a group. I'm actually kind of curious to see who I might see out there in the theater, and just enjoy a little kid nostalgia. Get my cup, get my popcorn bucket. Yes, I'm going to be that guy, and enjoy it for what it's worth. I was thinking of taking my son with me, but like I said, he's not showing as much interest, so I don't think he's going to sit for almost a 2-hour extravaganza and be comfortable watching Transformers for that long. My youngest, on the other hand, is showing more and more interest in Transformers, so much so that there's a YouTube channel by this gentleman by the name of Chris McFeely.
Okay.
Part of his lore is that he has an accent, and I don't know if it's a British accent. I'm horrible at discerning them from overseas, but he does what's called the basics on Transformers. So he'll pick a character or he'll pick a subject. Like, he's done Optimus Prime, he's done Megatron, he's done Starscream, he's done lesser-known characters. He'll do Obscure Character Month. He'll do, humans in Transformers, or the Energon Cubes, the aligned continuity, and all these different subjects. And he does, like, a good 10 to 15 minutes YouTube episodes he releases, like, once on every weekend. And for anybody who has no idea about Transformers, it's a good place to start. If there's anybody who has tons of Transformers information but might miss a few details, he covers a lot. He does something that I wish I could have thought of, but apparently he just got to it first and does it pretty well. I've seen other channels. It's not to say he's the only one who does this kind of thing, but his format and his layout, I think, is the most appealing by far. And it's just a good way to get caught up or learn about Transformers as you go through.
Cool.
Yes. So that's just something I'm looking forward to this weekend, see what happens. I felt bad for one of the guys, one of the Transformers groups on Facebook. He goes, "Oh, I went to the event and I'm sitting in the theater and I'm the only one here." I was like, "Oh, it's your childhood all over again." Because when we were kids, we were kind of hard pressed to find like-minded individuals if we weren't at school or on the playground. I'm a Transformers fan, but I don't have anybody to play with. Well, now, if that same guy goes on to the weekend and watches it then, Saturday or Sunday, I'm sure he'll have a better chance of coming across other like-minded individuals. So that's where I'll be, and I'll report back on that one and give you a rundown as far as how it went. It's also scratching the voiceover bug that's been biting me for quite some time now. Anybody who's listened to this, I've talked about it endlessly, how I want to do voiceover. I've looked into it. I've done classes. I've tried. But again, it's something that I need time to commit to. And that's all over the place right now. So hopefully this will be like a little kick in the pants as far as like getting out there and getting more work done as far as that's concerned to crack into the field. I'll see what happens. Again, that one I'll also update as we go along. It's funny in the background right now. I'm watching the scene where Megatron is being confronted by Unicron, and he's about to be reformatted into Galvatron.
All right.
Good stuff. So, that's all to say, Transformers. Yay, 40 years. I feel old.
We are old.
Yeah, that's where we are at this point. So, there was another piece of news that popped up literally as I was getting ready for the show. It popped up on my phone when I was checking my news feed. I don't know if you heard about this. This was put out, let's see, what does it say? Was put out today. Oh, it actually says it was released around lunchtime today. But it just came up recently. I didn't see it anywhere else. IGN.com reports, have you heard of Jason Universe?
No.
Okay. It'll honor me to tell you, Doug, that Jason Universe Horror Inc. announces multi-platform expansion of Friday the 13th franchise.
Okay.
So I'm going to read some of the article for anybody who's listening. You can check this out. IGN.com. You'll find it. It's one of their headlines. Horror Inc. is expanding the Friday the 13th franchise into a new era with the launch of Jason Universe. New Friday the 13th activations will span a wide range of platforms from entertainment, games, immersive experiences, merchandise, and more to be announced throughout 2024 via @JasonUniverse13 on social media or by visiting the official Jason Universe website.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
For decades, Jason shocked and thrilled audiences who kept coming back for more. We're excited to work with Victor Miller and Mark Toberoff on new projects we'll announce in the coming months. This is Robert Barsamian. I think that's how you pronounce the last name. Apparently, president of Horror Inc. Victor Miller was the screenwriter of the original Friday the 13th movie, who has reclaimed the domestic rights to the original slasher film in 2021 after a lengthy lawsuit. Miller, however, is not a part of Horror Inc. Barsamian is an executive producer on the upcoming A24 and Peacock expanded prequel series Crystal Lake, which originally had Hannibal's Brian Fuller on board as its showrunner before he parted ways with the project last week. Barsamian was also an executive producer on 2017's Friday the 13th, the game. Let's see here. We are focused on honoring the legacy while elevating the fan experience and appealing to today's horror audiences, as well as we develop new ways to watch, interact, and engage with the Jason universe. With a unique ability to remain at the forefront of pop culture for 44 years. Fuck, Jason's just slightly older than I am. Jason continues to top charts as one of the scariest villains of all time, with a strong global awareness across multiple generations thanks to billions of TikTok views, plus millions and millions of gamers and movie fans. We can't wait to introduce the new Jason Universe activations to these amazing fans. All right, so let's rewind a little bit, because you and I talked about the Jason, or Friday the 13th, the game, that was released on Xbox and PlayStation, as well as other platforms back in the day.
Yeah, it's actually coming up on its 7th anniversary.
Wow, yeah, you're right. Jesus.
Yeah, it was Memorial Day 2017 when it released, and the servers damn near immediately crashed.
Yes, and it was a fun game. The game that was being developed at the time was being done as an homage to Friday the 13th. It did not actually have the name or the license, but upon
Correct.
Was it Sean Cunningham?
Yes.
He saw the game, and I guess it was presented to him, or he heard about it. I don't remember the exact story how that one goes, but when he saw it, he says, "Oh no, well, we can definitely, let you use the license or the name." But that unfortunately kind of kickstarted this whole legal drama that came about with Victor Miller and Sean Cunningham and the rights to the movie, as far as the domestic rights at the very least, to the first film. Between that, the game was being developed. Who was doing the actual work on the game?
It was Gun Media.
Thank you. as they were working on the game, there were updates being made. The game was pretty well received. It essentially was tag. You can either play as the counselors or you play as Jason. And part of the draw of the game was they gave Jason all these iconic moves when it came to killing people. So yeah, like he'd pop your head off, or he'd I'm trying to remember some of the different ones. He'd like impale you on a spear or a hook, and just your body would slink down. You'd chop your torso in half. Like all these different moves that were inspired from, if not taken from, the movies. And people loved, because you play the jock, you can play the nerdy girl, the hot girl, whatever the case was. The Chads were all over the place. And everybody had like different stats when it came to running, sneaking, hiding, resourcefulness. And you would find, one of the things that I really liked about the game was the audio tapes that you'd find. And it would just, for anybody who wasn't watching the movies, it would flesh out the story of Friday the 13th.
Yeah, because there were two sets of tapes. The Pamela tapes and the Tommy Jarvis tapes.
Yes. Oh my God, sorry. You ever had one of those moments when you try to swallow and it just won't happen?
Yes, as a matter of fact, yes, I have.
Oh, fuck.
They're very unpleasant.
I thought I was about to die for a second there. All right, I'll cut that out. Maybe not. We'll see what happens. But the tapes were a fun part, because as you go through, you'll learn more about the game, more about the backstory, and then you'd be enthralled as far as to what's happening. The way you would play the game was you could either survive until the very end, when you repair the restore power, call the cops, or what was it? There was a time limit, wasn't there?
So there were the methods of survival were as follows: survive the night, which the game runs 20 minutes. So you would not know what time it was until you got the 2-minute warning up.
That's right.
And at that point, it was just basically an all-out sprint of just being like, holy shit, let me get away. You can repair the phone box, call the cops, and I think it's I think it was like 3 to 5 minutes before the cops would arrive. And if you make it to the exit, the cops saved you. And if Jason tried to run towards the cops, they would shoot the shit out of him.
Yep.
There was, you can repair the car, get a bunch of people in the car and drive out of camp, which led to some of the best hijinks in the game as you're driving around like an asshole. Because, I love this game, but man, the physics they never quite got the physics of the entire thing to work right, man. I've seen some wild stuff in gameplay and clips on YouTube. One of my other favorite ones, because it was so rarely used, is you can repair the boat and then you can evacuate via boat.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
And the other handy thing you can do is there was one methodology for defeating Jason, and that was you had to find the two-way radio, call in Tommy Jarvis, wait for somebody to die so they can respawn as Tommy. You have to inflict enough damage on Jason, you knock his mask off. Then you have to have one of the female counselors find his shack, go in, steal the sweater of his dead mother, go over, find Jason, activate the sweater so he gets confused, thinking he sees his dead mother alive again. And then basically Tommy Jarvis has to hit him with either the machete or the axe and embeds it in his face, and congratulations, you have defeated Jason for that round.
Ta-da!
I have, of all the times I played that game, and I played this game constantly for about, I'm trying to remember, I think I kind of started tapering off on it about fall going into winter of 2018, because it was just tough to find good lobbies. I've only seen a Jason kill in-game twice.
Really? Oh, okay. I'm trying to remember if I ever actually was part of one. I know
it was so damn... Go ahead.
I know at one point, I made it a point to every time when we'd start the game, I'd go look for the sweater myself.
Yeah.
But the problem is, like you said, to line up all the other things, they have to happen in order, because if you activate the sweater, you pretty much like waste your one opportunity to confuse Jason, because it doesn't happen again.
No, you got the sweater's one use, which is weird, but whatever. It's their way, because they even said they made the game developers even said we made the Jason kill incredibly hard, and it is so easy to screw it up.
Yeah.
I know I've screwed up at least one Jason kill personally.
Same here. But yeah, no, that's all to say that the game was a lot of fun. They were adding to it. They were, they gave you the one offline cabin version of it where you can explore and find different things, and you had little puzzles, and you'd find more rooms and more little things going on, and that was just to tease the fans for other upcoming DLC. But that was around the time when that lawsuit was kicking off between Miller and Cunningham, and at that point the game just like hung in limbo.
Yeah,
it got to the point where they were supposed to do the DLC for Jason X, and you were going to get Uber Jason, and it just never came to that. Unfortunately, they continued doing bug fixes. They kept up with the servers for a while, but once that lawsuit launched, you can't really blame either one of them as far as Miller or Cunningham, but that screwed the game's life at that point, because no new material, no updates to it at that point as far as actual content, and the fans just got bored and the game dwindled. There was a lot of people saying that, the game's going to come back, just wait for the lawsuit to finish up. No, I mean, it takes a lot of money to keep those servers running, and it just was not in the cards for this game. So people have been saying that there's another game in the works possibly, so we'll see what happens. I don't know if it's Gun Media again, but that was the other thing. Gun Media was a small company as far as the game development, so they had their own hurdles to work with and get through. But again, the hardcore fans enjoyed it. It was fun for what it was, but we waited to see what happened. And that lawsuit, like any lawsuit in this country, just takes time. So now it looks like Victor Miller did get the domestic rights back. Now they've come to some kind of terms and agreement, whatever the case is. So now Horror Inc. can keep pushing forward and now continue different avenues with Jason, as it said earlier in the story. Immersive experiences, merchandise, games, entertainment, whatever the case is. So we'll have more iterations of Friday the 13th, which is great. But for me, as I read that story initially, I was like, did anybody really think that Jason would become like its own like media entertainment company? Like Horror Inc. This just sounds kind of like contradictory as far as like the spirit of Friday the 13th and what it was. It was very like punk rock back in the day. Horror movies, slasher movies, especially in the 80s, was taboo. Like, you're not supposed to be looking at that. That's like trash or whatever the case is. But now they're like, oh, no, fans have loved it over the years, and now 44 years later, we're excited to present to you more games, more. It just sounds weird. Like, oh no, we're excited to make more money off of this franchise, which is great. Don't get me wrong. For the people who were behind this and originally, put it all together, if they're the ones who are still getting this money and everything else, fantastic. But if there's an entertainment company behind Jason, I'm just like, it just sounds odd now. I don't know. What do you think?
No, this makes perfect sense because, I mean, this was already a money-making franchise 35 years ago. I mean, by the time the 1980s ended, we already had 8 movies, for fuck's sakes. And the only reason that they kept on making the movies was because they knew that they could put in a $10, $15, $20 million budget on it, and probably it was going to be a quick flip because most of those movies, they usually within the first couple of weekends, they would make their money back. Even with advertising budget included, because, that was kind of how these movies worked. If you didn't make your money back within the first couple of weeks at the theater, you were not going to make your money back. And that's just kind of how it worked. I mean, it's the same thing with, it's the same thing with Halloween. It's the same thing with Friday the 13th. It's the same thing with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And it's a mixture of things, too. It's not just complete cynicism of we need to go make money. It's also the fact that now you have people in the entertainment industry who grew up on these movies. So, yeah, they're definitely like, holy shit, I want to work on this movie that, I enjoyed watching when I was a kid. Derek Mears, who played Jason Voorhees in the 2009 remake of Friday the 13th, which is now 15 years old, which feels really weird to say. He was, the guys even talked about, he's like, when he was a teenager, he loved those movies. So he was super pumped that he got to step into the role. So I'm very curious to see what they do next. I'm not sure how I feel about the idea of the prequel of Crystal Lake, which from what I've read, it was supposed to kind of be like the early days of Jason when he was still alive and kind of revolve around that. I'm not sure if we really need that story told, but whatever. But and the other thing I think about too is Friday the 13th, the game that crawled, so a lot of the other games we have can walk. Like now we've got there was an Evil Dead asymmetric multiplayer game that came out.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Killer Clowns from Outer Space one that's supposed to come out. Last summer we got a Texas Chainsaw Massacre game. I think it's only a matter of time before we have a Halloween game come out or a Nightmare on Elm Street game. So
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I'm all for this kind of shit. It works for me. I've been kind of hoping, like, once I remember hearing, like, a ways back. Interestingly enough, the guy, I'm blanking on the actor's name, but the guy who played Shelley in Friday the 13th 3 in 3D, he became a lawyer out in Los Angeles. And through his Twitter account, he was actually supplying updates of what was going on with the lawsuit and also kind of supplying his own, legal analysis of what's going on with it. And like, oh, okay, we got this ruling about this today. I think it's going to go this way, and I think this might happen with this, and this is what this means in terms of law, and this is what this language means. He was really breaking it down for all the fans.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's driving me nuts. I cannot remember the guy's name. But simply based on the fact that we're getting all that kind of stuff, I was waiting for something to come back with it, and I'm like, hell, fuck yeah, I'm all for it. So, yeah, so we shall see what happens from going forward with this. And I'm never going to be mad about more Friday the 13th stuff.
No, don't get me wrong. On that end, I'm excited. Again, like I've become more appreciative of horror films as I've gotten older. They used to terrify me as a kid, so it was something I would shy away from growing up. But now, seeing all these different forms take place, it's great. For me, it's just the weird part is now it's not a conglomerate, but just to have like a company behind it specifically. It just seems kind of weird to me, and that's always because like
what do you mean?
I always looked at horror films as kind of like the punk rock of the film industry. Like they put these movies out there, shoestring budget, shooting nights on different locations, whatever the case was. They'd go in, get their job done, whatever it was. Anybody who was willing to participate knew that they were doing something that might get shunned or might, be a mark on their resume as far as like films or whatever they worked on. But they did it because they enjoyed it. They were having a blast. They got a kick out of it. There's a reason why
these were all like studio pictures, though.
No, I know. Like I'm talking about like the early ones. They always felt like the bastard child of the industry.
Mm-hmm.
When people would talk about horror films, they're like, "Oh, all it is just gratuitous nudity and violence." Yeah,
mm-hmm.
That's what makes them fun. There's a reason why those 80s movies and 70s, in some cases, the topless girl or the final girl who goes up against the killer, whatever the case is, those always, like, yes, it was formulaic to a certain extent, but that was always exciting. And yes, don't get me wrong, studios were behind them because they realized that we can make tons of money for very little. The first Hollywood movie is a good example of that. But
oh yeah,
it's just like now for them to announce flat out like Horror Inc. and all this other stuff, like it's for me it feels like kind of a little too formal. But I think that's just my young rebellious nature saying, "Hey, fuck you." So I don't know. I still have to come to terms with it, but it's like anything now. You got a website, you got an outlet for things. Yes, you're going to put it on a t-shirt, you're going to put it on a baseball cap, whatever the case is. Sell it, make your money, great. For the people who are, work for it, love it, I feel good for them. Like that's what it should be. But it just, for me, it feels a little disjointed. And that's just me personally. I'm not saying it shouldn't be happening. Don't get me wrong. There's a reason why like New Line Cinemas back in the day was the go-to for a lot of these films. Then like Lionsgate became another avenue for all these films to start coming out. That's great. Get out there, do things. And as we talked about before, a lot of actors get their start in horror movies. Jamie Lee Curtis, Jennifer Aniston, Leonardo DiCaprio, as we came upon with Critters 3.
Brad Pitt.
What's that?
Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt, yes, that was the other one we talked about. So all these people, like they got to start somewhere, and horror movies seems to be like the ground level for a lot of them. Not to, them to mention, directors, writers, camera operators, whatever the case is, makeup effects. Like, you've got to start somewhere. Look at James Gunn from Guardians and Suicide Squad. He started out with Lloyd Kaufman and Trauma. So, like, you've got to find your footing somewhere, and then from there build a foundation and move on. So with that in mind, yes, this sounds great. It just, when it came across this, and I have to point this out, when I read this caption and they show the little banner for this news story in IGN, it says Jason Universe with a little like CGI of the hockey mask, but it says Jason spelt in its own specialized font, but Universe is UN the number 1 V the number 3 RSE. Okay. Like, I don't know if they need to do the whole number replacing letters thing. I don't know if that's a little cliched at this point, but okay. It's their announcement. We'll see what happens. I'm excited to get more games, more entertainment. I agree with you, the Camp Crystal Lake thing. Do we have to humanize the Jason story? I mean, it's, for anybody who knows the story, we get it. 2 counselors were having fun making out on the lake while young Jason was out swimming and ended up drowning in the lake, unbeknownst or known to them, whatever the case was. First movie was his mom who was getting revenge on all the different counselors. Second movie wasn't until we finally get to see Jason, but it wasn't Jason as we know him today. It was a progression that we finally went to, and then we go all the way to the remake back from 2000. What was it again? 2009.
2009.
Fuck, man. Yeah, you're right. It does feel weird to say that was the remake. But that's all to say, it's a franchise. And it's been going and going and going. 44 years is nothing to balk at. We talked about before with IPs, so kind of like the X-Men, Batman, Superman. Those are like 75 years plus in some cases. So for all of that, yeah, I mean, we could very well be sitting here in, 31 years talking about the 75th anniversary of Jason and be like, what the fuck happened? Well, it's still going strong. They're still going out there. Dumb counselors, dumb kids are still making out by the lake. But it's a progression of different things. Like, nobody thought back then when they made that first movie that it was going to be what it is today. Nobody does that with that in mind.
No, that was, the entire thing was just Sean Cunningham was trying to find a way to make some money and keep the lights on. We're going between the projects he was otherwise looking to do, and he ended up stumbling onto something big. Yeah,
and more power to you. When people complain that, they're making another one, the sequels, blah blah blah, and it's more the same, nothing really changes. Yeah, but you know what? There's something to be said about the main idea, and it's a horror character who comes back and gets revenge on the counselors or anybody who's connected to the camp or the lake itself, and it just goes from there. Yes, it can get redundant, it can be silly, but that's where you have to be creative in the storytelling, creative on how the different stories play out. Whether you make fun of or enjoy Jason Takes Manhattan, because let's face it, like, it's very short-lived the time he's actually in New York, but the majority of the movie takes place on a boat. But they tried different things. Jason Goes to Hell, Jason X. Like, they were trying to reinvent the wheel when it came to this character, only to say that, hey, look, people love it, let's go back to basics. So maybe that's what Crystal Lake is going to be about, the prequel series. But it remains to be seen how that plays out. But the story will always be told. People will always enjoy it. Jason's always going to pop up in some shape or form, whether it be a t-shirt, a jacket, sweatshirt. There's always figures being made. The different actors who've played him over the years, Kane Hodder, one of the more popular ones. It has its own little industry at this point. Horror conventions as well. Comic-Con itself, that it's all encompassing, so it includes that as well as all the other stuff. So we'll see it again and again. But is it for you? Maybe not. Like, for me, like, I didn't enjoy horror movies growing up, so I shied away. But now I'm finding more appreciation for them, especially when you talk about them and I get excited about that. The story, the backstory, hearing how it all came to be, finding out the production stories behind the scenes. stuff like that gets really, really fun and exciting for me. It's like the trivia nerd, as far as like all the useless movie trivia. It's just another thing to add to the vault in my head. So hearing all those stories and all those different experiences, cool. Getting the lore of them, it also plays out and makes it exciting. I always point towards Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, again, it got redundant, got out, overplayed, whatever the case was. Group of kids, they dream, Freddy goes after them, blah, 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 blah. When they did the new Nightmare, where Freddy comes out of the film and into the real world, so to speak, that was a twist. That was that's actually one of my more favorite films when it comes to horror, because they started playing with the idea of what these killers really were. And in that case, Freddy was more like a spirit, essentially, that was channeled into a movie. Now he's coming out of the film to go after Heather Langenkamp.
Mm-hmm.
So stuff like that made it more exciting and more opportunities for makeup effects and different shots that they can do as far as different scenes. So as long as they kept the creative ball rolling, I think that's where it got exciting. Both remakes of Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street didn't hit the mark quite as well. But then again, it's, your mileage may vary. Did you like the remakes? Maybe. Did you appreciate the older films? It all depends on where you land on each one. But no, with all this going out now, I think it's cool that it's happening. It feels a little weird because I never, and I think that's what it comes down to. I don't think I ever thought an announcement like this would ever happen. But hey, they're out there. I'm sure we're going to see more stuff, especially every year. Spirit Halloween, the Halloween store that comes around and sets up little remote locations. I'm sure we'll be seeing more merchandise for all the different slashers coming and going. So it's just another way to make a buck, man. So it's going strong. Didn't think it was going to be going as long as it has, but more power to them.
Yeah, hell yeah. It's ebbed and flows over the years, of course. But at the end of the day, it's become a horror institution. And it's become a pop culture institution. I mean, there's nobody out there. If you show somebody a hockey mask at this point in time, most people, are they going to say something about the actual sport of hockey? No, most people are going to be like, oh, Jason.
Yeah, exactly. So, hey, go get it. Make your money.
Mm-hmm.
Switching gears a little bit. What's that?
Oh, I just want to finish up with two quick things.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Number one, recently there was a fan movement online to start doing more widespread mods on Friday the 13th, the game. Unfortunately, that got shut down by the actual owners of the IP.
Boo.
And yeah, it wasn't cool because there's already been like some modders out there. Like if you play Friday the 13th on PC, if you know where to get and download the mods and set them up correctly, you can play on Grendel with Uber Jason from Jason X.
Nice.
The biggest problem with all of this stuff is, yeah, you have to really kind of like know your way around software to get this kind of stuff to work, but that's also pretty cool that they did stuff like that. And this is kind of related, but not quite related. Have you heard anything about a movie called In a Violent Way?
Rings a bell, but I'm not sure why.
Okay, In a Violent Way it's a Canadian-American horror film that's going to be coming out at the end of this month. It's supposed to be limited release. It's been kind of bouncing around like the film circuit for a little while. I've heard it described as Friday the 13th if it was directed by the Coen brothers.
Ooh.
It's shot, there's minimal music, and a lot of it is shot from the perspective of the killer. It's like an undead, basically an undead killer who doesn't speak, who's kind of wandering around the woods, who wears different masks at different points in the movies, and everything is kind of shot like as if the camera's following him around as he's going after people who venture into his woods, his realm. Sound familiar?
Yes.
Yep. So I'm hoping, I've been scouting around. There's a couple of theaters not too terribly far away from me that are going to be running this coming up in late May, early June, that I'm looking forward to checking out.
And what's it called again?
Once I do,
What's it called again?
It's called In a Violent Way.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like very like independent cinema. It was made by a group of people who were yeah, it wasn't like a big organization or anything like that that put this thing out. Um, yeah, hour 34 minutes. When a group of hold on, I'll read this. When a group of teens takes a locket from a collapsed fire tower in the woods, they unwillingly resurrect the rotting corpse of Johnny, a vengeful spirit spurred on by a horrific 60-year-old crime. The undead killer soon embarks on a bloody rampage to retrieve the stolen locket, methodically slaughtering anyone who gets in his way.
Okay. Do they have any... Is there any kind of description on like what the killer looks like, or any defining details?
Not so much. They put out a trailer for it. Most of the trailer is you don't really see a clear look at the killer. It's basically, like I said, the camera's like kind of like following behind him, or like doing the over the shoulder shots. So you don't see a ton with him that way. Yeah, some of the masks he wears look kind of funky, but like I said, I've purposely been avoiding a lot of stuff about it.
Okay. Cool. I'll have to look up that one and see what comes of it. But yeah, because every slasher has their defining quality. You know, Jason was the mask after a few movies. Freddy has the sweater and the claws. Mike Myers has the butcher knife and the mask. So different things that define these characters. So I'm kind of curious as to how they're going to stand out, or how the undead quality is going to play into this one. But okay. Good stuff. I like a new take on an old idea. It's all a matter of how it's done and how how the details are handled. Truth be told, I know I've mentioned a few times on here, I've been struggling with this story idea for the longest time. And that's I'm a huge fan of Ghost Rider. So
yeah,
I've always wanted to see a Ghost Rider with certain ideas in place. But whenever the comics are done, or whenever the movies are done, it's hit or miss depending. Like, I love the old Ghost Rider comics, especially when they did the Rise of the Midnight Suns, and that was essentially like an amalgamation of all of the horror, or how do I put this? Horror, witchcraft, like all the supernatural realm of Marvel was like all consolidated with the Rise of the Midnight Suns. You had Ghost Rider, you had Johnny Blaze, you had the Night Stalkers, which was Hannibal King, Blade. I'm blanking on the third member. The Darkhold Redeemers, which is a group of people that were chasing down the Darkhold book, which is essentially like the Necronomicon in Marvel. Who else? Morbius, the Living Vampire. So you had like all these characters would come together and they would tackle supernatural events or occurrences. It was always fun to see that. But it's come down to where now the different versions I've seen, whether it be in comics or TV or movies, I haven't been entirely satisfied with. Not true. Comics more so, because that's where I first learned of it. So that's where like a lot of the foundation is. But TV and movies, not as much. So I've been struggling with this idea of trying to write something. Finally, I was like, you know what? I can probably do my own version of it. It doesn't have to be Ghost Rider, but I can try to write a story, a little something, put it together and put it out there, and maybe see how it's accepted, or, I'm blanking on words now. Fuck, this caffeine's screwing me. See how it's reviewed, or how everybody thinks of it. So I don't know. It's like, throw another project onto the pile of things that I want to do and get done in a certain amount of time. But we'll see what happens, because I've come up with some fun ideas that I've been running by Jen. I might include another friend in the writing process, just to bounce ideas off of. And if I have anything, great. If it goes anywhere, fine. But if not, it's just a little personal project that I can do and say, hey, look, here's my own little take, and see what happens. So, but yeah. So what was it called again? In A Violent Nature.
in a violent way.
The one that you sent me just said in violent in nature. Interesting.
Did I get it wrong? Hold on. I keep the title is just like weird enough for I feel like I keep screwing it up.
You know what? It could be one of those things where they haven't cemented the title down either.
Oh no, you're right. It is in a violent nature.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, it's what was that one Tom Cruise movie? Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Edge of Tomorrow had a different title at one point. It was like Live, Die, Repeat or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they just weren't sure how to title it, what would be the more accepted titling of the movie, and then eventually like two versions of the film were released as far as the title is concerned. And like, oh, okay, well, it doesn't really matter. Edge of Tomorrow works, but Live, Die, Repeat is just as effective. So I don't know. And they also have like weird like testing groups when it comes to that kind of stuff. Like, oh, you can't put the word die in the title. People will just get put off by it. I'm like, who?
So. It probably wasn't the movie anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So, no, but we'll see what happens. Late this month, early June, you said, right?
Yeah, it's like end of like last couple days of May or beginning of June. That's when it opens, somewhere around there. It's going to be limited release, so
around the corner.
Check your local listings and all that nonsense.
Yeah, there's an old chestnut.
Yeah.
Switching gears just a little bit, the other subject I wanted to talk about tonight, and this is very brief, so we don't have to spend too much time on this one. I know I've talked about it before. X-Men 97 on Disney Plus just wrapped up their first season. 10 episodes. They told a very far-reaching story when you actually look at the different episodes. Like they bounced around from place to place and had a bunch of things going on. They called in a bunch of different storylines, called back to a bunch of different storylines from not just the old cartoon on Fox, but also from comic books. And the story that they told all together. Like Jen and I were watching the finale, episode 10, yesterday. And I looked at Jen, I'm like, this could easily, if this was made into a live action movie, this would easily be like among the top comic book hero movies out there right now. And that's translating all the characters and the effects, and like it really, really worked. The way it all came together. The reason I mentioned this, because a lot of stuff's been going on. The fans have been loving it. The cameos that play out in the storyline are great. They don't do it just for fan service. I mean, they serve a point, or serve a purpose to a point within the storyline itself. So, like when you see Omega Red pop up, or you see Silver Samurai show up for a quick cameo scene, or Morph changes into the Hulk, or changes into Quicksilver, stuff like that. Like it's just fun to see like the attention to detail and the being rewarded for remembering a lot of the comic book history and cartoon history. So much so that fans once again have been like saying, oh, we need to bring back Beau DeMayo. Beau DeMayo, who was one of the writers and producers on the show, had a hand in a lot of the different episodes, was let go shortly before the premiere. Now, keep in mind, seasons 1 and 2, the writing chores are done. In fact, Lenore Zahn, who voices Rogue, recently reported that she's done recording her lines. So season 2, for the most part, primary voice work is done. They're doing like ADR, pickup lines. They'll call people back for certain things depending on what has to get done to finish up the chores. But season 2 also is going to have Beau DeMayo's hands on it. But one of the coolest things that I saw recently was DeMayo, after being let go, he was going to do talk shows and interviews and stuff like that to promote the series and its big return. But once he was let go, obviously that all went away. So we didn't get a lot of that. Other creative people on the show, writers or directors, whatever the case was, they did interviews, but they weren't as far-reaching, I guess you can say. I mean, yes, different sites talked to them, and we got tidbits here and there, but nothing from DeMayo himself, and no reason as to why DeMayo was let go. No clue yet. A lot of people are taking the wait-and-see approach right now, but there's a larger portion of the fandom that's saying, bring him back. There is like a movement to have him return to run the show again.
Huh.
So much so that there's even a contingent of the fan base that are saying, give this man a live action X-Men movie. He obviously understands the assignment. Let him shepherd in the X-Men into the MCU. So that's pretty bold. Like this, bringing the X-Men back to the cartoons was no small feat. So the fact that he was able to mix cartoon, comic, and then some with the storylines, like a lot of stuff played out, a lot of stuff came together. Beau DeMayo was doing like a running commentary for each episode on Twitter. He would tell people, you should watch such and such episode as homework before the next episode. Or one of the ones he recommended was, watch this episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, because the themes from that episode heavily play into the upcoming episode. Stuff like that. He would just like bait you with different things, and then he would also answer questions. So when people would say, what was the fate of this character? I think this happened to him. He would actually like help out and give like little hints here and there. My favorite thing that he's done so far at the end, especially after the season finale aired, was he said, hey, look, I appreciate all the kind words and all the love, but this was a teamwork effort. So please, when you see those credits at the end of the episode, recognize all the different names, all the different talent that helped to make this all come together. It was not just me. So he's not saying, yeah, fuck you, I did it myself. He's spreading the love around. He's saying like everybody else had a hand in it. He had his hand in it as well, but everybody deserves the appreciation of the kind words because, as the saying goes, it takes a village. So all these people came together, writers, directors, animators, editors, voice talent, all this came together. If you have not seen it yet, you don't have access to Disney Plus currently, right?
Correct.
All right. If you get a chance, I highly recommend it. Just watch the first few episodes. This goes for Doug and for anybody listening to this. One of my cousins I saw online was saying that he had not been watching it, but he's been hearing a lot of hype. Now he's excited to sit down and binge it, essentially, which is fine. Like a lot of people take that approach. You don't want to watch it week to week. You just want to watch it once it's all finally done. But all the different episodes, the storylines that they, weave together, the different eras of the X-Men, the different relationships, it all plays out. And, blink and you'll miss some cameos here and there, especially in the last 2 to 3 episodes, because it was all like one arc that was wrapping up. But I'm excited to hear what they're going to do with season 2 at this point. We have hints at what's going to be happening, especially after the finale aired. You can see the direction that they're going in. They had started on season 3 before releasing Beau DeMayo. So I don't know who's going to be taking over after him. But that's going to be... those are going to be some big shoes to fill. I hate to say it. Like, the internet has already built up Beau DeMayo to a certain extent. Again, we don't know what happened to get him released or why he was released. But we'll have to wait and see and play that game at the very least to see what the grounds were. There were some people saying that there was some chaos as far as behind the scenes in the writer's room or whatever the case was. Other people were saying that people weren't happy with his orientation. Whatever the case is, let's not speculate. Find out what happens. If we do find out something that was silly, hopefully Disney can say, hey, we screwed up. Obviously, the product is really good. Let's give this guy another chance. Or if we find out that it was something messed up, saying, all right, well, unfortunately, it is what it is, but let's see if we can't just continue to enjoy the show and the revival of the X-Men. So, again, this is all to say that if you have not watched X-Men 97 yet, if you've been holding off, now's the time. Jump in, check it out. It's a lot of fun. It's fun to hear a lot of the voice actors return, voicing their old roles, if not given new roles. It's fun to see some of the characters come in and out. Keep an eye on the title sequence every time. For every episode, it changes. There are little nuances and details that change, and they coincide with the storyline that's taking place. So, like, at one point, you have one character that's prominent. The title lineup is usually the same, especially from the old series on Fox. So, you'll have Jubilee, you'll have Storm, you'll have Jean Grey, you'll have Wolverine, you'll have Cyclops, Professor X, Gambit, Rogue. But then, at some point in the series, you'll notice one character is omitted. Another character is added. At the end of the title sequence, they'll give you little quick frames of glimpses of parts of storylines that play into the upcoming storyline, but also remind you of a past episode from the original run that says, oh, do you remember this episode? Because we're going to touch upon this. So it sets you up. Like the amount of detail that goes into it is so well put together. So I can't talk about it enough to say, if you have not watched it, set some time aside. Those episodes are amazing. It's fun. It's very rewarding as a comic book fan. So hopefully between this and then the upcoming introduction of mutants into the MCU with Deadpool 3 or Deadpool and Wolverine, depending on how you look at it, it's going to be interesting to see how that all takes place now. There's a lot of people saying that, superhero fatigue, people are done with the MCU at this point. It's so redundant and formulaic, and I greatly disagree. I think the quality needs to be paid a little bit more attention to, and I think this is a good kick in the pants for that. And if we can get the X-Men introduced properly, I think it'll give the MCU a new direction and a new lease on life, so we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. I'm not saying that the X-Men are the solution for the MCU, by no means whatsoever. Those movies have had trouble in the past, but that was also a different studio who was doing it at that time, so we'll see how it goes. I would love to see Beau DeMayo take over writing chores on a new X-Men movie. Don't know if that's going to play out and how it play out, but again, wait and see. Enjoy X-Men 97 for now. That's about it.
All right.
So, I do believe we're there, sir. How do you feel?
I'm very tired.
The caffeine and the coffee have definitely hit, and they've hit quite some time ago. But at the same time, I'm just, So I'm right there with you, my friend. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. My name is Eric Hernandez.
I'm Doug.
And we are the Rabblecast.